The Curse of Tamerlane's Tomb. Timur, also known as Tamerlane, was a Turk-Mongol conqueror who founded the Timurid Empire in and around modern-day Afghanistan, Iran, and Central Asia. An undefeated commander, he is widely regarded as one of the greatest military leaders and tacticians in history, as well as one of the most brutal and deadly rulers. He was born on the 8th April, 1336 Christian era in modern-day Uzbekistan. Timur gained control of the western Chagatai Khanate by 1370. From that base, he led military campaigns across Western, South, and Central Asia, the Caucasus, and southern Russia, defeating in the process the Khans of the Golden Horde, the Mamluks of Egypt and Syria, the emerging Ottoman Empire, as well as the Delhi Sultanate of India. He shared a common ancestor with Genghis Khan on his father's side. He saw himself as Genghis Khan's heir. Timur's armies were inclusively multi-ethnic and were feared throughout Asia, Africa, and Europe. Scholars estimate that his military campaigns caused the deaths of millions of people. He killed between 100,000 to 200,000 people in Iran alone and slaughtered around 100,000 prisoners in India just to terrorize indigenous people. After he captured Delhi, he ordered the massacre of people. His army slaughtered every citizen for 3 days, and all roads and lanes became full of blood and dead bodies. Timur died on the night between 17th and 18th of February, 1405. His body was sent to Samarkand, a city in present-day Uzbekistan, where it was buried. In June 1941, Soviet anthropologists undertook an expedition to open the tomb of Timur, ordered by Stalin to confirm if it was the tomb of Timur, as it was said to be, and to study his remains. The expedition was led by Russian anthropologist Mikhail Gerasimov and included many members of Central Asian intelligence, including Tosh Muhammad, Kari Niyazov, Yahya Gulamov, Kodi Zarifov, Sadruddin Aini, as well as Russian academics such as Alexander Semyonov, Mikhail Mason, Lev Oshanin, and others assisting staff, including Malik Kayumov. It is agreed by different accounts that before the tomb was opened, 3 old men approached Sadruddin Aini, handed him a manuscript said to be very old, and claimed that the manuscript mentioned that the tomb could not be opened because of a curse. However, it was not an ancient script, but a book of local legends from the 19th century. The men begged them not to open the tomb, but Sadruddin Aini shooed them away with a stick and attributed the idea of a curse to a story created after the death of Timur to deter grave robbers. In 2004, it was confirmed by those people who had opened the tomb that they were approached by the 3 old men with the manuscript, but they could not read it as it was in the old Persian language, and no one was familiar with that language. Local residents and Muslim clergy also tried to stop the excavation, but the team continued its work because it had approval from the Soviet Union's dictator, Joseph Stalin. No one could defy Stalin's approval. Otherwise, he would have faced a terrible death. Excavation began on 16th of June, 1941. On 18th of June, 1941, they discovered the remains of Ulugbek, the grandson of Timur. On 19th of June, the heavy gravestone was taken from Tamerlane's tomb. On 20th of June, 1941, the tomb of Timur was opened. The mausoleum was filled with a sharp, choking odor of a mixture of resins, camphor, rose, and frankincense. The crew experienced technical difficulties. The lights went out but came back on, and the electrician was unable to determine the cause. 2 days after the opening of Timur's tomb, on the night of 22nd June 1941, Germany attacked the Soviet Union without declaring war. Many people linked it with the opening of the tomb of Timur. The opening of Timur's tomb expedition was immediately wound up, and the remains of Timur and his family were sent to study in Moscow. Germany and the Soviet Union's bloody war continued for nearly 4 years, in which millions perished on both sides. From June 1941 until January 1943, all victories were on the German side only. At this point, Stalin was told that such unprecedented bloodshed was due to Tamerlane's curse, as his tomb had been desecrated. They also pointed out the dates. On 20th June, the grave was opened, and on 22nd June 1941, just after 2 days, Germany suddenly attacked the Soviet Union, whereas the war had started in 1939, and from 1939 to 1941, there seemed to be no threat to the Soviet Union from Germany. They convinced him to send the remains of Tamerlane to his grave, and it might help save the Soviet Union from the German forces. Looking into the dates of the opening of the grave, the German attack, and the vast destruction, and hoping it might neutralize any curse of Tamerlane if it did exist in reality, Stalin ordered that a special transport aircraft be provided to return Timur and his descendants to their tombs in Samarkand with full honors. In November 1942, Timur was reburied with Islamic rites. After a few days, the Red Army experienced its first major victory by winning the Battle of Stalingrad. Since June 1941, the Red Army had been only on the receiving end without winning any victory. But as the body of Tamerlane had been put again in the tomb, the tide turned in favor of the Red Army, and it became victorious in Stalingrad. One version of the story says that the special transport aircraft, carrying the remains of Timur and his descendants, made a detour to fly over Stalingrad. This defeat sealed the fate of Germany in Europe, and after that, it could not survive. Finally, World War II ended with Germany's defeat and the suicide of Hitler in Berlin. Many people believe that this event of the burial of Tamerlane's remains with full honors caused the victory in the Battle of Stalingrad, one of the most terrible and simultaneously heroic battles of war history. To this day, it is still a widely held belief in Russia and ex-Soviet states that it was the actions of the archaeologists Kari Niazov and Alexander Semyonov to release the curse of Tamerlane that caused Hitler to break his peace treaty and attack the Soviet Union, which led to the killing of more than 27 million people in the Soviet Union and around 4 million German troops. Thus, it can be said that the curse of Tamerlane caused more than 30 million casualties on the Soviet Union front during World War II. The curse of Tutankhamen. Late in 1922, the British archaeologist Howard Carter discovered the tomb of Pharaoh Tutankhamen, who died in 1323 before Christ, aged about 18, in the Valley of the Kings, in Luxor, Egypt. Pharaohs had been buried there from the 16th to the 11th centuries before Christ. Most of the tombs had been plundered during early times, and the tomb of Tutankhamen was the first to be found almost entirely undisturbed. The 5th Earl of Carnarvon, a keen amateur Egyptologist who was financing the project, joined Carter and his team to enter the burial chambers, where they found the young pharaoh's mummified body and a wealth of religious objects, wall paintings, and inscriptions, as well as the equipment he would need in the afterlife. The discovery created a worldwide press sensation, and stories spread about a curse on anyone who dared to break into a pharaoh's tomb. The Times in London and New York World magazine published the best-selling novelist Marie Corelli's speculations that the most dire punishment follows any rash intruder into a sealed tomb. It was not long before Lord Carnarvon died in Cairo, aged 56, during the excavation process, which inspired speculation about the curse of the tomb. The lights in the city went out, which also added to the frenzy of speculation. Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of the Sherlock Holmes character, told the American press that an evil elemental spirit created by priests to protect the mummy could have caused Carnarvon's death. No hard evidence of a curse had been found in the tomb. Still, the deaths in succeeding years of various members of Carter's team and many visitors to the tomb kept the story alive, especially in cases of death by violence or in odd circumstances. Alleged victims of the curse included Prince Ali Camel Fahmy Bey of Egypt, who was shot dead by his wife in 1923, Sir Archibald Douglas Reed, who supposedly X-rayed the mummy and died mysteriously in 1924, Sir Lee Stack, the Governor-General of Sudan, the location of Luxor where the tomb was found, came under his watch, was assassinated in Cairo in 1924. Arthur Mace of Carter's excavation team said to have died of arsenic poisoning in 1928. Carter's secretary Richard Bethel, who supposedly died smothered in his bed in 1929, and his father, who committed suicide in 1930. The belief in the curse continues to haunt people. Carter himself angrily dismissed the whole curse idea as Tommy rot, but when he died solitary and miserably unhappy of Hodgkin's disease in his London flat in March 1939 at the age of 64, the story of the mummy's curse sprang back to life in his obituaries, and it has persisted to this day.